I want to do things on a budget, but there are certain things that it's like, let's really, maybe this does merit some more money.
I'm still trying to like land the plane on how I feel about DIY. Because like I think there's a place for it, but it's like, where's that line where it goes, you shouldn't DIY this, you should hire someone.
I've created this crazy system that only I understand. I have to push these 17 buttons in the exact order for everything to come on.
Yep. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, this is, our first time meeting, and you seem like a great dude. We've been watching your videos. At least I have been watching your videos for quite some time, and it feels like you were like randomly were popping up on my YouTube feed for a while, and then like you disappeared, and then the algorithm decided one day that it wanted to put you back there, and you've been popping up pretty much consistently for the last like 6 months to a year now, and I've been really enjoying all of your stuff, and all of the DIY stuff to just like the cost effective, like just like the way to get technology done well without necessarily like always like breaking the bank. I think that's just been like kind of the big deal.
Yeah, that's kind of become my niche, I feel like, is just how can we do really cool stuff with technology without spending every last dollar and beyond of our budgets, and how can we stretch the dollar to do some really cool stuff. So it's been fun, and just sharing and the YouTube journey, and just meeting guys like you, and we're all doing the same thing wherever God's placed us in the local church. And so that's really been my favorite part, is just seeing how like the capital C church can be enhanced, and we can all do this together, thanks to YouTube and the internet.
Yeah, for sure. So where are you located at? Because like, did you change churches recently?
No, our church has changed a lot recently, but I have been here for 15 years. Tomorrow is 15 years here at Central Baptist Owasso. So Owasso is just north of Tulsa, and I'm an Okie through and through. Grew up in the south part of the state and have never left, man. So it's been great.
That's awesome. I guess I watched a video. I thought you'd said you'd switch. Maybe you were doing something different. It was one of those videos I was like trying to watch while I was like doing work, and I was like only half paying attention.
Well, I think you have a video where
like I said, our church has changed a lot recently because we are going through a major remodel. So we have moved our complete worship space over to our student worship space, and moved to 3 services, and when it only seats 170 people.
Gotcha.
And so it's been a big shift. It's almost like a new church.
Gotcha.
And then construction is well underway. You may hear the beeping of scissor lifts during this podcast outside my office.
When are you guys going to wrap up the project?
Oh, don't ask me that.
I just jinxed it.
When do I hope we wrap it up? We're hoping to be in there before the end of this year. But it's a major project, full worship center remodel, adding on new stuff to the front of our church, gathering space, kids worship space, indoor playground, and stuff like that. So actually today they're putting in extra steel for the LED wall to be flown.
So I'm sure we'll see videos about that and that progress and transformation.
That's the plan. I'm trying to document the journey. That's kind of the hashtag of my YouTube channel, is really just whatever I'm doing here as the worship and media arts pastor. Just bring you guys in and show you what I'm learning. So it's odd in construction and remodel stuff. It's like you hurry up and wait a lot. It's like, oh my gosh, make this decision. We have to do this thing. And then 2 months go by. So
yeah,
it's been odd documenting it, but I'm trying my best, and just to be able to share with other people who might go through this, because it's my first time doing a major remodel like this, like the things that I am learning along the way that, hopefully people can learn from and not make my same mistakes. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how involved have you been in this whole process? A remodel / building a new building / like going from a portable church to a new church is something that like we found that it seems like every church that we work with that's doing one of those 3 things has no idea what they're doing, and doesn't know anyone that knows what they're doing. And it's always like something majorly gets messed up. And it always seems kind of crazy to me, because I'm like, sometimes we work with churches that are part of like, oh, it's a plant of another larger church. And it's like, well, I feel like someone from that larger church would know how this process works. And they're like, oh, we're just kind of, figuring it out as we go along. So like, how involved have you been in this whole remodel process?
Yeah. Well, it definitely falls all on my shoulders as the worship and media arts pastor to make sure that the vision is there and that we're not going to move into this thing and be regretting a bunch of stuff. But I definitely early on decided like we have to pick a great integration company so it's not all on my shoulders. At the end of the day, I can blame someone else if something screws up. So we're using DC Pro. They're out of Tulsa area, which is great. Daniel Cannell and those guys. You've probably heard of him. He was at Church on the Move for a long time, and is just they're an awesome company, and they've been great to walk me through all of the different things. One thing I learned early on was, here's my dream and here's my budget, but then the formula that construction companies come up with that gives you your dollar amount is much less than what my dream is, and not even really my dream. Like, we're having to repurpose a lot of stuff. There's a lot of OFE. You see that on the line items a lot, owner furnished equipment. So there'll be a lot of times where Ryland is running a lot of Cat 6 cable through the ceilings on his own. So that way we can save some money and spend the money on the right things. And that's one thing I've been learning and trying to make sure we do going in is like, I want to do things on a budget, but there are certain things that it's like, let's really, maybe this does merit some more money. So we're future-proofed a little bit going forward.
Yeah. Really quick. Did you need to like interject yourself, or like how did you get a seat at that table? I think that's one of the things that tech people sometimes struggle with when there's a new construction thing. Like, did somebody just come to you and be like, "Hey, you're gonna be," or like, did you have to kind of massage yourself and kind of ask for a seat at the table?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, because I'll do a lot of consults with people who know we're going through this, and then they're trying to ask me some questions, and they're almost done building their building, and I'm like, they don't even know what their budget is. Nobody's talked to them about AV stuff, and it blows me away. Like, we've been having these conversations.
Literally 3 of our clients, that's exactly what's happening. It's like, hey, can you get in next week? And it's like, we just, like, the ink hasn't dried on the contract yet.
We don't have your stuff
Yeah,
yet.
I mean, we've been having these discussions for over 2 years now. I mean, our church knew this was coming, and I'm definitely being trusted to handle all of this as what my position is. We only have, I think, 7 full-time people on staff. Our church, so everyone knows, we run about 450 people. So it's not some mega church thing. They are definitely leaning on me and my expertise, in quotations there, from YouTube University, and learning things the hard way sometimes. But that's why, we talked about early on the cost of hiring an integrator for a project this big, which is around $5.7 million to do everything we're doing. It was definitely, hey guys, we this isn't a question. We have to do this.
Yeah.
It's more like finding the right people. So
yeah, I often say it's like, you need to get the right answer the first time on this stuff. DIY, like I love it, because if you don't always get it, you can kind of blend it and make it work or take a revision. But like,
it's still like, I'm still trying to like land the plane on how I feel about DIY, because
Right.
like I think there's a place for it, but it's like, I want to like land the plane of what I tell people, like, where's that line where it goes, you shouldn't DIY this, you should hire someone.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like, there's all those people that are like, oh, hire an integrator. Like, that's just their answer.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think that's a bad answer. But then there's the guys that are like, I can do this. And they're like, you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even know how to ask the right questions. Like, you're not going to be able to do this. Right. So it's like, there is that fine line of like, there are guys out there that can do this by themselves, or at least to a point, like yourself. Right. And know, okay, this is where my skill set stops. And like, this scale is like, we need to hire someone. So yeah, I'm in that, like, I haven't put my finger on like where I go, this is my suggestion of where that stops and where it turns into this for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a unique situation for every church, and sometimes I'll do these tech tours and talk to them, and they're like, hey, yeah, we didn't use an integration company at all because of the people we have on staff.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they were able to do these things and manage these bigger projects.
Yeah.
For us, it came down to ministry has to happen. Sunday's always coming in the middle of this year-long project. And so for me to have to do it all by myself would have really limited what I was able to do to continue to serve our church in my worship and media arts role. And so having an integration company takes a lot of that load off of you, which is great. And then there's things that I don't understand and know how to do, like drawing electrical conduit drawings for all of the subs and all the different things that, I don't know vector works. And so there are certain things that are expectations for architects and all those different things that I think it's worth it whenever you don't have the expertise or the time. Obviously, small projects, if it's a small budget, it may not merit a full integration company, but it might be worth doing some consults with people that have that expertise, that you can at least pay for some stuff to make sure you're on the right track and not, making some kind of mistakes.
Yeah, pay for the knowledge, not necessarily like the install or like the actual product even sometimes. Yeah.
I think you just said two key components there is expertise and time.
Yeah.
I think that factors into that DIY versus hire
for
formula.
Sure. Yeah. So you said
Absolutely.
the whole project was 5.7 million. Do you know how much of that 5.7 is the AV side of things?
It kind of fluctuates a little bit because we were given a number of 340, but that did not include like house lights. And then we ended up shifting the house lighting to DC Pro. We went with some Lation fused pendants that we were able to get a good deal on. So that line item got shifted.
Yeah.
It's a little over 400. If I'm remembering right. Of course, change orders always, it's like, well, could we eke out a little more to actually, like, for instance, this week I'm working with change orders on microphones because we are still using our ULX stuff from 2004 for all of our handhelds and lapel stuff. So it's like, are we really going to move into this new place with 20 plus year old mic systems? Because it wasn't part of our budget, and it's like, I don't know, like it's working, but you hate to move in and have all of this other stuff and then not have new mics. So we're just trying to figure that out.
Yeah. How do you feel with that situation there? Like, do you feel like that was something that you had to talk yourself out of asking for originally? Was it an oversight? Like, because like we deal with that a lot of times where like clients are like, well, we've got all this equipment, and it's like, yeah, though it works doesn't mean that like, we're doing this big project. Like the last thing you want is to do a $400,000 project and then, 6 months later, go back to the congregation and go, hey, we need another $25,000 to replace all of our wireless in the building, type thought process. So for you guys, do you feel like it was like an oversight, or like we just didn't think about it because they've just worked and now we're like, you know what? It's probably not best practice. We should probably replace this, or kind of like what was kind of the thought process that you guys had there?
Or did you guys kind of have some kind of underspend? And there's like, hey, we've got some extra money here. I don't know. That's I know it's a rare thing, but it can happen.
I went to my integrators and I said, I know this isn't gonna happen, but I really would like to be able to show leadership. If we were gonna do things great, I'm not saying crazy. This is not my dream scenario. This is like, we are doing things with high levels of excellence when we move in all areas of technology. Let's get a quote for that, and that was, I don't remember, guys. I'd be saying some number that was not right, but it was a lot more than what my budget was. I think it was over $1 million, for everything. And then it became, okay, here's my actual budget. Let's look at each line and say, where do we want to spend the extra money? And where are we just going to be forced? Like, everybody wants a piece of this pie, from furniture to, now fire suppression systems, like all these different things are going to start eating into that money. Well, microphones are one of these things where it's like, we're legal. We haven't had any issues. I'm still happy with them. But, and so that was a line along with all kinds of other things that we ended up saying, we just can't do that right now, maybe in the future. And so let's build our infrastructure so that it can support whatever we want to do in the future. But microphones will work for now. Luckily, God's been really gracious, and people have given over and above what we anticipated so far. And so I think there is a little bit of that wondering, like, okay, could we support a few more things there? And so it's just a constant discussion with our facilities and pastors team and all that stuff. So that's kind of where we're at. And the hard thing with a long project like this is you begin the project with this technology, and then technology moves fast, and you're like, oh man, maybe we should, move to that new P16 thing from, Behringer, because that might actually work better than all of our P16s now, the P24s, things like that you start, well, then that changes the budget. Now we got tariffs. So man, it's a lot to manage, especially for a project this size, and we're not even doing that much. So
you said you're at just over 400. How much, and I know you don't have like an exact figure in your head, if you had to lick your finger and stick it in the air and say, we're at 400 for the integration for everything that's new, labor, all that kind of stuff, how much money do you think you're bringing in owner furbished equipment over to the project as well?
Oh, goodness, I don't know. I mean, I can tell you the areas where we're doing owner furnished equipment. We're doing all of our creative lighting. We did not get to do any new creative lighting as far as like movers, color, anything like that. I've done a lot of that on a budget for our space, and it's still doing okay. But we did invest the money in new key lighting because we had all old Source 4 Juniors, non-LED stuff, and it's like, let's sell all that really on the cheap to another church, and then we're going, all new Chauvet, Reve stuff for key lighting stuff, and because that's like, we're going to live with key lighting for a long time, and let's spend the money now because that's not an area I'm going to have the money ever really to spend things on. One thing we have done is anything that I can sell, like we sold our old line array systems. Anything that I can sell is not replenishing that any overages. It is being put in a different account so I can buy some of this stuff that we don't have in the budget. So that's been pretty handy, and we've been able to sell quite a bit of stuff. So creative lighting, mic packages, all videography, like all cameras, all that stuff is all being brought, computers, TVs. It's crazy. Basically what we're getting is we're getting a new sound system, an LED wall, all the infrastructure to do all these things from broadcast room throughout the building, all the cabling, install, and I'm sure there's lots of other little things too. But I don't know if that answers your question, but it gives you an idea at least of kind of how we tackled this project.
Yeah, do you feel like that? Do you think like a dollar figure of like $100,000 for the things you just said would be roughly okay, or do you think that's too much or too little?
That might be a little much because we don't have as nice of stuff as maybe a lot of churches do, just because of the way I've had to incrementally, purchase things over the years. So instead of having 20 Rogue 2Xs, I have 15 Boulder Pros that are, $300 instead of $1,800 a piece. So
yeah. So you're relatively, you're about 10% of the project cost wise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's good to know. That's one of those dollar figures I'm always like trying to get like out of like people where it's like, well, how much is your whole project? Cause like you should be about 10% of your project ish on AV. So yeah, that kind of leads into that whole thought process, which is cool. Kind of going back to that DIY stuff, I think that's a really big topic in my brain as of late, just because like I've been dealing with a lot of people that want to DIY stuff that feel like it's like a really big struggle for them. And I also see people posting things that always seem semi absurd to me, where it's like, I need 17 wireless microphones. And they're like, we have $5,000. Like, how can I do that? I guess like I say that with the question of like, when you go into this idea of we need something, take the building project out of it, right? Yeah. Your normal everyday, hey, like we really want to do blank project, what are the thought process and the steps that you go through to say it warrants spending money, it warrants DIYing, it warrants spending, the cheaper version of something, like how do you make those decisions of what do you spend a bunch of money on, what do you DIY, and what do you not spend a bunch of money on, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's tough because a lot of times you have a project in mind and you want to go ahead and accomplish that vision, but your annual budget doesn't allow for you to spend the money on something new. And so the things that we've done that have, I think, helped us as a smaller church, like my annual budget is, I think, $25,000 or so. That's all things media. That's all things like internet, like the whole everything. It's not
All
everything
technology,
music.
flat across
Yeah.
the board.
Yeah, so that's all lumped into that total. And so one thing we've done, because there are times where it's like, I want to not get the cheapest, maybe infrastructure stuff. So like our switcher, I think that's something that like you shouldn't go totally cheap on, and you're going to have that for years. But if you don't have very much money in your budget, what we've done is we have done a deferred maintenance account. And so every year we put, I think, $6,000 in that account, and then, which isn't much, but then, hopefully that switcher lasts you for 5 years. And now you've got, $30,000 in that account that you can use as a lump sum instead of having to go to your pastor and being like, the projector died and we need one Sunday.
And
I need
$20,000.
That's not good practice, right? And so that's one thing we've done to strategically be able to purchase some of those more expensive things that you probably should spend more money on. On my channel, I think that the things that I've shown that I've had success in not spending a ton of money on is some of the things like lighting, creative lighting. I think you can get away with spending a lot less money on. And I'm talking about movers, I'm talking about wall washes. A lot of that technology is copycatted so many things and the price is there where you can do that. But don't cheap out on lighting people's faces because, skin tones are important on camera. Let's make sure we don't have the cheapest thing ever that is just an RGB light. That's like a common mistake I see with churches. They'll just go on Amazon and, oh, look, this has white in the light. It's RGBW. It's probably not going to look the greatest. So infrastructure, cabling, things like that. Like, we for years ran Belden 1694A. It's not the cheapest thing. It's still 3G. But in our new build, that's where we've spent a little bit more money as we're going 12G SDI throughout the building. Do we need 4K right now? No, not necessarily. But I don't want to pay for the cheap cabling and the install of that cabling, and then 5 years from now, pay again for 12G and then have to rerun it myself now. Like now we're paying like kind of dummy tax,
Yeah, robbing Peter to pay Paul.
About it like that.
No, I mean, you're kind of future-proofing your building and your systems. And yeah, I've said for a long time, I don't think churches think about the infrastructure well enough on new builds and renovations.
Yeah, and I think that's where an integrator can help you, or at least churches that have done this kind of stuff, because it's a lot to think through. Do we want to go 2110 IP stuff? Do we need to run fiber to places, or is SDI the best way to go? And it's really you can be dangerous. Like even myself, like I'm sending stuff to my integrators being like, hey, could I save money by, running this type of cable? And they're like, well, that doesn't do PoE++. And, if you're going to be, that's important to think through. And so, just make sure you measure 3 times before you cut once, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of going down that same vein of like, what gear do you say you should spend money on, and which gear do you think you should save money on?
Yeah. I think it's funny because there's like the law of diminishing returns, right? Like for me, I found like and it's hard to know where that line is the question. Like whenever I spend this much money on a vocal mic, is it worth it? But then I spend that much more, and you really can't ever tell the difference because that law of diminishing returns, the more you spend, the less you're probably going to notice the difference. Things that I like to spend money on that's important. I say, like in my live stream course that I have a section called King Audio, Queen Lighting, and so audio is king. Let's not cheap out on our pastor's microphone. Like we have a DPA 6066 for our pastor. It fits him great. It sounds great. And does it stink buying a $700 microphone for your pastor to wear a headset whenever you could probably get by with a cheaper one? Yeah. But the spoken word of your pastor week in and week out is the main part of your service. And so like, let's invest money to make sure it fits him right, that it's going to work well, and the wireless that you're using for him is solid. So, I mean, we don't have Accent or that kind of thing, but we're not using Phoenix Pro, stuff for our main talking headset. Now, can we get that stuff for our baptistry stuff? When somebody's popping in the baptistry? Yeah, let's do it. That's great. Let's get a J mic off Amazon that really is EQable and fine, and it's $30. So invest in that kind of stuff, I think, is important. Anything that you cannot have fail during your service. How about internet for your building? People don't think about that.
Yeah.
We recently invested in having fiber ran to our building and upping our game with our infrastructure throughout our building and doing some more Unify stuff and making sure that our bandwidth is great to all the different places. So infrastructure, things you can't have fail, definitely are worth spending money on. And the last thing, a mistake I made, cheap hazers. People, stop using cheap hazers. Like, you can use cheap lights and it looks great with great haze. And so, we had a Chauvet AM haze for a long time, and it was just kind of billowing clouds of smoke. And I think things like a better hazer will make your cheap lights look better.
What hazer are you on now?
We're using Ultratech Radiance. So it's kind of middle of the road. It's like $1,200. We're not using, what's the purple one that I always forget?
Oh, yeah, the
MG.
Yeah, we had one.
MGD. I always like.
Yeah, MGD Atmosphere.
Yeah. Have you seen the Pea Soup hazer?
Yeah, I've seen the Pea Soup. Falls Creek, this camp that I was at, was leading worship at. They have a Pea Soup, and they said they wouldn't do it again.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it has great warranty on it, but and it looked good. I've heard some stuff about it renders color different, like in your haze.
Oh, okay.
Like your key lights will appear a little greener due to the haze.
I wonder if that's why they call it Pea Soup.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Oh my gosh, we just discovered something on this podcast. You heard it here first, ladies and
breaking
gentlemen.
news, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to add that to my list as well. Like, I've always said, don't cheap out on wireless. Like, just get good stuff. But I think I might have to add getting a good hazer to my list.
Yeah, one of the things that I guide clients to, because like you said, you wanted $1 million worth of stuff, right? You obviously didn't have $1 million to do your stuff. And most of the time, like, that's pretty common. And I think that's honestly, that's a good thing. Like, some people will be annoyed by that, but it's like, I think that your vision should always be higher than what you can afford. So that there's always something to like obtain. But like this idea of like, well, let's just start peeling back all these individual things. And I had a client recently where I was like, well, I feel like we're compromising every system now. And I was like, why don't we list the systems as in like from top importance down, and then
royalty.
Yeah, like you kind of said, right? And they're like, well, audio is super important. I'm like, cool. Then we should do the audio system fully, right? And then from there, we'll work through the next system. And then that way we get to the point where it's like the system's not as important to us, then we can kind of start doing more cost-effective things or add-ons there. Audio is such an important thing, and I don't think people understand how important audio is. Like you said, your pastor is up there every Sunday, minimum of 52 sermons a year, speaking the word of God, which is why we're there in church. That should be taken care of 100%. Worship leader that's also doing the same thing, their microphone specifically should be the same thought process in my head, right? And then it's like, when you think about the PA in the room and the acoustics in the room, a lot of churches that are doing live streaming, like, they don't have the capability of mixing a full different system. So having a well-designed, treated room will make your live stream immediately sound better, because you're not having to do nearly as much. And it's like, getting people to understand that, I think, has been really difficult for some reason. But it's like, it is really important. I agree with you that there's like levels of microphones that's like, you're not going to notice the difference. But like, I've also seen churches go, we just bought this brand new Acoustics PA and we've got a Digico. And then they walk out with like a Radio Shack mic from 1983. And it's like, wow. All right, well, SM58s are only $100. Maybe we should have invested $600 more and gotten you some more wireless.
Yeah, I'm just going to step down on Digico.
But yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head with where I think is like audio is king because a majority of the things that are important to the church rely so heavily on that. If we can't hear the pastor clear or the worship pastor clear, like those are, like we can do a cheap projector, right? Like,
Yeah.
and most people really don't care. Our live stream can, as long as it's okay, like we can get by with not spending tons of money on that. But audio systems, I think, are the most important thing in my opinion.
And you're also not going to just swap those out. Like I think, Ryland, you mentioned lighting because like your scenic stuff will change somewhat more often than not for other churches. It really depends. But you're not going to hang a PA or your main projectors or whatever. You're
Every
not swapping those out.
Yeah.
So
a PA is going to be in there for 10, 15 years, hopefully.
Right. So just
absolutely
making that
and
decision
people
first.
always ask me, hey, what camera should I get for X, Y, and Z, this setup? And we're not happy with the picture quality, and it's the same idea. Hey, maybe we should look at how you're lighting things for your key light, because your cameras are going to immediately look a lot better if you have some good lighting going on for your stage. And so, don't cheap out too much on lighting your stage.
Yeah. I think another thing that I've found with a lot of times churches is there's a knowledge gap, right? So it's like just even knowing what you have and being able to experiment with it and reaching the like optimizing it and getting it the best before you're like, hey, we need to start looking at some different gear. And like you said, like lighting, like, hey, you've got to tune that up before you're just jumping to a top of the line like Blackmagic or Sony or Canon camera.
Yeah.
Because it's just also going to look like.
Yeah, and I would say that's kind of the same thought process, right? Of the audio system we talked about. If you have bad face light, like you could have really nice cameras that still look not great because lighting is so important, right? Yeah, it's really interesting, just how little information it seems like is out there for a lot of this kind of stuff.
But I think that's go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
It is a knowledge gap sometimes, I think, for sure. I mean, people get thrown into managing the AVL at their church because they showed interest in it sometime. And so they just kind of get trusted with that. And then they're scouring the internet just like me, trying to figure out how to do stuff. And, it is important to not be the king of your kingdom in a small church that is the only one who knows how to do anything. That's a common mistake I see with people that are DIYers like myself, is we did it ourselves and we're the only one who knows how to do it now. It's like,
right.
I've created this crazy system that only I understand, and I have to push these 17 buttons in the exact order for everything to come on.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes tech guys that create this little kingdom almost like it becomes our identity, and we shut out people from helping us, and we don't build a team around us, and we don't equip the saints to do it, just like to follow in the footsteps that we were walking in. And so like I would just encourage somebody that is at a church like mine or smaller that you maybe, I hear the excuse all the time, like, I just don't have volunteers. Well, I would challenge you, like, maybe you're not asking the right people, maybe you're not showing that there's opportunity for people to come along and join you, so it's not all on your shoulders, because it's a big burden to carry week in and week out, to feel like there's guys that I know that are like, I haven't taken off a Sunday in 2 years. I can't leave. And that's just not healthy, right? And so the church will survive if stuff doesn't happen exactly the way that you have it mapped out in your brain. It's okay, and that's the way it should be.
And maybe sometimes too. I mean, I'm totally with you. I think tech guys also do that a little bit for control, and like needing kind of ego stroke a little bit. But I would also say too, it's like, do we even need to then bring down the complexity of our system so it's a little bit more less intimidating, and newer volunteers can get a grasp of it quicker and easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like having complexity in certain areas is okay, but you need to have those on-ramp opportunities for volunteers where it is an easy win for people to come and be a part of your team. And, sure, you can automate everything through Companion and MIDI cues, and I don't even need a sound guy. Honestly, I could just have it send signals to the X32 to mix it exactly how I want. But like at the end of the day, is that the healthiest way to do things for our church? And so complexity sometimes is okay and has to happen in certain areas, but we need to have those opportunities for people to plug in and be a part of our tech ministry and find ways for them to grow and have a little bit of ownership in that as well. If they're just button pushers, there's certain operations where that's okay, but hopefully they feel like they have some ownership in it as well. One of our key values here at our church is we develop owners and not renters. I don't want people to feel like they're just renting space here as part of our team until they find where God really has them. Like, no, man, like, how can we help you to have some ownership and realize like what we're doing makes an impact? Our live stream, it matters. And like when you have the great camera shots and then you're invested in a great audio mix, it's going to translate. God's going to use that in great ways. Like I saw, this blew me away, the astronauts that came back. I don't know if you saw the clip of the guy talking about, every Sunday he was able to join his church live from outer space. And it was like, he just felt connected.
That's
and
cool.
It fed his spirit, to know that he was still a part of this body of believers. And I was like, we don't have any astronauts, but I know that that Gigi at home is watching every week and commenting and she still feels that connection. And so how can we use our people that God has brought to our church to help accomplish that vision? And it's just cool to see God working through us to do great things for his glory.
We got to find out what that church that is.
Yeah,
Because I think they might be the first
I
church
know.
to stream intergalactically.
Right. It's pretty awesome.
I mean, seriously, like
Bro,
that's
I'm just saying,
wild.
whatever service they're using, that should be there. Like, listen.
Yeah.
Like,
Resi.
I was
get
gonna
on
say,
that. Yeah.
hey, listen, just so you know, Resi gets to outer space. All right?
Yeah.
The ISS supplied by Resi. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Or
man.
Black Magic Web Presenter, man. Like, we go to outer space.
That would have been a great like April Fool's marketing thing too.
Well, I was going to ask you, we had one of two questions that I wanted to ask, but why we kind of wrap up the podcast here. I guess let's just kind of go down this one. It's always this argument, I don't want to say argument, discussion of, should every church in America live stream? You hear Brady Shear talk about how he doesn't think that most churches should. And, I've flipped back and forth. Because I feel like the argument is so strong both ways. And I want to continue that conversation just based off of what you were just saying. And kind of what's your thought process on like, should every church, is there like a level that you should, or like kind of what are you thinking there?
Yeah. Well, the great thing about live stream is that it can be as complex as you want it to be. Like we talked about complexity, it can be really complex or it can be really simple and automated. And I think that the opportunity for live streaming, the reason that I definitely lean more on the side of, hey, most churches should be live streaming, is that the roadblocks and barriers that used to be there for live streaming really are just not there as much anymore. It is pretty low barrier to entry to at least have your service live on Sundays with a couple of cameras and a decent audio mix. Does every church need to strive for a greatly produced live stream that you see some of the bigger churches doing? Maybe not, especially if areas of your local ministry are suffering because you're investing so much time into that. But I think that the great things about live streaming is that, number one, it is a content producing machine for your church. The church are finding us online, and for us, we're able to repurpose content from our Sunday morning experience that all of my volunteers show up and serve for 1 hour. They're already going to be there, right? So I'm not having to go back and re-edit. I'm not having to go back and cut up cameras from an ISO feed or anything like that. It's already done, and then I've got content now to feed the social media engines throughout the week. And so that has been great for us. And then for, I think most churches, if you're live streaming, it really is kind of the front door to your church. I would say social media is that, your website is that, but what's the first thing that people really are going to check out if they're people who are curious about churches in their local area, is they're going to watch a service. And because that is something that I can't catfish you with as quite easily. The pictures on your website, the pretty people,
Social
all the
even.
different things that the marketing almost is really what we're doing, can kind of paint a picture that really isn't quite accurate. And I feel like if I click on a service and I feel like I can get a pretty good idea, vibe of what this church culture is like, hear the preacher preach, all those different things that you might, of course, I haven't shopped for a church in 20 something years. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe I should talk to some more people that are. But I definitely think that is a great value.
You should start searching for a new church just to see the experience. Not that you're leaving or anything. Just do it so you can say. Like,
Sure. Yep. And then I think that it's just the live stream is a connection point. And that's one thing that I'm trying and striving to increase, is moving people from spectators to engaged participants in our live stream. You know, post-COVID, everybody was doing it. We've been streaming for a long time before that. And the engagement was higher then because, you know, people were at home. And now people that are at home or on the go, a lot of times may just have it on in the background and they're just listening, or they've got it casted up onto a TV so they're not in the chat. And so how can we really try to engage those people? Like, we've begun a post-service Zoom call with anybody that wants to hop on with our pastors called The Deep End, where we dive into those questions that we always have in the discussion area of our sermon notes. And so it's not been highly engaged with, but you know, we're trying to do this because those are real people that are behind the numbers on your little ticker. You may only have 20, 30, 40, 50 people on the live stream, but then that's there living there the whole week. And yeah, could you just shoot a video about your church and have a little highlight and have a clip and then it's always on your website and that can replace having a live stream? Yes, but then it feels more like a marketing piece to me and less of an authentic who we are week in and week out.
yeah, it's the social media stuff is always super funny to me because, like, even Stephen Furtick, this like within the last like 2 weeks, he was telling a story about how he went to like lunch or something like that, and the server was like, "Hey, you're that guy from YouTube. Like, I watch your shorts all the time." And he's like, "Oh, thanks, that's great." And then she's like, "Wait a minute, is your church in town?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's about 2 miles that way." And she's like, "No way, I never knew that." And I'm like, and that's talking about like, that's a elevation church, right? So it's like, it's just kind of funny to think of that, where it's like, that's the type of like power that social media kind of can like spread that word. And it literally only takes like, you don't need millions of views, you know, hundreds of views is a big deal, because that means hundreds of people just watch. Like, when you have a church of 80 people, right? Like, and you get 400 views online, like that's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and that's something I talk to our team about a lot. Is, you know, at one point we had a traditional service here at our church that was really only had about 30 to 40 people coming to it. And I would say, guys, we're having a full in-person service with childcare and all these things for 35 people. Let's not discount the fact that the watch time on YouTube, the average viewing duration is over 30 minutes on our live streams. And so when we have 180 people throughout the week watch that, that's substantial. Those are real people that are hearing the gospel, that are hearing the good news, and engaging as much as they choose to through our live stream. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a great way to think of that. I always think of it like the numbers of butts and seats. Like, you're right. You know, like for 40 people, we're willing to have a greeter at the door, you know, someone cleaning the bathrooms, you know, 5 people in the nursery, right? A youth group. Like, we're willing to do all that for 40 people. Like, why are we not willing to do that for 40 people online?
Yeah.
That's a good way to think of that.
And the discussion, I think, then becomes, once you've got all those things going and the machine is going with the live stream, certain things get brought up. Like, we've had people that have been watching for months that live a state away, and they've messaged us and be like, how can we become members of your church? Oh, is that our vision for this? Are we wanting to have that type of thing? You know, and so it's just, it's a great thing, but also the why behind it. Like, is it to just drive people to your local church? Or how can you like really define for yourself, that's great that you are engaged, but really we want you to go and be in a local church. If you consume our content and you get edification through that, if it encourages you, that's also great as well. But even with social media, it's like, oh, great, you had some viral stuff go. But is that meeting your goals? How are you actually going to use that for your church's overall vision instead of just like trying to hack a viral trend? Like, what's the point though at the end of the day? So those are some of the questions that I'm kind of like mulling around in my mind that have been brought up in the last year or so.
Yeah. There's a friend of mine who runs a church. He's the senior pastor of a church in New York City. And what they started doing for that, because like they're pretty big online, is like they started encouraging when they would get messages, out of state, hey, like, how can I become a member? They're like, oh, you can become a member. And like what we encourage and the church supports like financially is to start doing like watch parties. So get into a place where you can have multiple people. And then those eventually, like their plan, they've already done 2 of them. Then they actually launch a campus in those areas where it's like now it's that church and it's a physical church so that they can have that connection to be in the local community there. And that's the way that they're kind of like navigating through all of that, which I thought was really kind of like a really cool, creative way. Instead of just going, we've got 50,000 people watching our live stream. It's like, no, we've got 6 campuses, in the areas where people are watching us, and we're encouraging them to go out and invite more people in to learn about Jesus, and that turns into a campus over the course of a couple of years. So I think that's really, really fun and really cool thought process. So.
Yeah, that's neat, man. We thought about some of that stuff. We're still if you're a member, you have voting opportunities through our church still. I mean, so there's certain different things like that with like membership. I don't know, church membership is kind of odd and weird, and it takes all kinds of shapes and sizes in different churches. But and we're not a satellite campus church. We're not a multi-campus church at this point. So that's kind of off of our radar right now. But I love that. I think that's a cool way to keep them engaged. And who knows what God will use that to like expand your reach. I mean, like that's why I put out videos on YouTube for people, is like I can have so much impact right here at 9001 North 145th with my people in these walls. But whenever I publish it online and share with everybody else, now my reach and impact is expanded exponentially, and like God can use that and do awesome stuff through it. So like, why not with our church content too?
Well, dude, we've got the 45 minutes in, and so I want to be respectful of your time. I really do appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with us and give us your thoughts. And these things are always so funny. Like we plan on talking about so many things, and then it's just like it runs off. So I don't know. I feel like it went really well. I appreciate you coming on, and hopefully you would be willing to come on again at some point in time.
Yeah, man, it's so cool. Thank you for even thinking of me. It blows me away that people would care to just to have a conversation with me. I'm just a guy who has been doing ministry since I was in high school, and just walking through doors as God opens them, and started putting stuff online of just documenting my journey here as a worship and media arts pastor. And it's cool because I think people can relate. Anybody who's in ministry in a church or doing tech in the church world, it's like we all are walking through the same little struggles and trying to do things and still be good stewards of like what people are giving. Like literally, this is their money, their tithe that they have given to the church, and like let's steward it well. And that means different things, at different times. Sometimes it means spending the money the right way, and it may be more. But man, I'm just happy to get to have this kind of conversation, and that you guys would even consider having me on. So thanks a bunch. I really appreciate podcasts like this where we can just talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's great. All right, one last thing, and then we'll be done. I like to surprise people with this. One piece of advice that you would give. It doesn't have to be tech related. It could be don't eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches if you want it to be. If you have
that's bad advice.
One piece of advice, what would it be?
One piece of advice for anyone that's listening to this podcast is don't go it alone. For me, one of the most healthy things that I've done is engage with a small group of guys. Like we met this morning for breakfast. Every Friday, we're iron sharpening iron kind of thing with guys who are not tech guys. They're just my friends. They're a trusted group that now I can be held accountable and not go it alone. In ministry, it's really easy to be on an island and be leading people always and never be poured back into, right? And so we want to serve out of the overflow. And if we're not careful, we can replace our relationship with God with serving Him. And that starts to, it feels like we're doing the right thing sometimes, but at the same time, we've got to serve out of the overflow. And so for me, the healthiest thing that I've done in the last few years is find that trusted group of people. And that can be hard in ministry too. If you're somebody like me who's a pastor at a church, who are these people that I can trust to be real with? And our church is great, super accepting, but at the same time, you know, I don't want to share my dirty laundry with everybody. And so, man, that's been something that has really been healthy for me, my family, my wife. Like, it makes us better in the long run to serve and not burn out, you know, because we can just keep grinding, you know, and before you know it, you're like ground to a pulp and you have nothing left to give God. So that would be my advice. Also, if you haven't watched Nacho Libre, you're missing out. It is everything.
Well, have you not been baptized?
That's right. I'm a little concerned about your salvation and stuff.
That's great.
Oh man,
I've never seen it.
You need to take his advice.
Okay, maybe.
It's definitely worth it.
I've got a long list of things I need to watch.
We'll watch it on our way to Florida. Where can people reach you, follow you on social, that kind of stuff?
For sure. I'm not cool. I don't have some kind of brand, you know, about worship leading or anything. It's just my name. I don't know. Maybe that's vain, but it was just the easiest thing. It's Ryland Russell on YouTube. It's Ryland Russell on Instagram. It's just Ryland Russell everywhere.
Well, again, Ryland, we really do appreciate you coming on. And yeah, thank you so much.
Man, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.